Fellowship Kids eCampus. Join us today for story time as we read God's Shipbuilder. And please share this with your friends so that they can listen too. God's Shipbuilder. Looking for someone to tell the people what he was planning to do, God thought of Noah, last of the 10 old patriarchs, now nearly 500 years old. Keen, alert, and vigorous, he was one of the wisest men of his day. Moreover, amid all the evil about him, he remained loyal to God and the right. The Bible says Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. In this, he was like Enoch, and no doubt this is why God chose him for his most important task and finally saved him and his family from the flood. Just what Noah's usual work was, we are not told. Perhaps he was a farmer, like so many of his relatives, but he may have been a builder, perhaps even a boat builder, for by this time, people surely had boats of many kinds on their beautiful lakes and rivers. Certainly he was a great designer, or he never could have carried out God's instructions for building the ark. One day, one of the great days in history, God came to Noah and said, "The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence. Behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh wherein is the breath of life, from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die." This must have saddened the old man. He knew the people about him were very wicked, that they needed to be punished, but the destruction of everybody and the whole beautiful world, that was something too dreadful to think about. But even as God spoke of punishment, he told of a way that all could take if they wished. "Make thee an ark of gopher wood," he said. An ark? That meant something that would float, a ship, as they would say. But would it be large enough to hold all who might want to find refuge in it? Noah must have been amazed at the figures God gave him to work on. It was no small lifeboat that he had in mind, but a huge vessel, big as a modern battleship. It was to be 600 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 60 feet high, almost as big as some of the ocean liners today. The United States, pride of the U.S. merchant fleet, is 990 feet long, 101 feet 6 inches wide, and 122 feet from keel to top. It was 12 decks and a crew of 1,000. In war, it could carry 14,000 soldiers. Why did God ask Noah to build so large a vessel? First, because he wanted every single soul to know there was room for him in the ark if he wished to be saved. Second, because he planned to preserve a great number of birds and animals in it. And third, because he knew it would have to ride out the worst storms and the roughest seas of all time. After Noah was alone, he must have thought a long time about what God had asked him to do. What a lot of trees would have to be cut down and hauled to the building site. Imagine all the sawing, planing, and shaping that would have to be done, and all the men who would have to be hired and paid. It was a huge task for any man to tackle. And then Noah must have wondered what everybody would think when they saw him building a ship 600 feet long. Most likely, they would say he was out of his mind, throwing his money away on a crazy idea. But thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. People do just that, regardless of what others may think of them, when they are walking with God. So Noah started to work, drawing the plans, preparing the lumber, and laying the keel. At first, the neighbors probably didn't take much notice, but as the years went by, and one by one, the great wooden ribs of the vessel were secured in place, and it became clear that it was a ship and not a barn that he was building, they began to make fun of him. How they laughed, for they could see no reason for building such a thing. What would anybody want with a boat this big? And they probably felt quite sure it wouldn't float anyway, even if Noah could get it into the water. Noah tried to explain, but it was no use. As people flocked to watch him work, he warned them of the flood that was coming and how God had told him to build a place of refuge for those who wanted to be saved. The more he tried to explain, however, the more they mocked him, but he went on building and preaching just the same, while the last few years of that beautiful world slipped away. Thank you for watching, Aaron and Elsie. Zamora and Ariana, Clifford and Sean. Share this with your friends so that they can listen too. Bye-bye.
The fruit of the spirit's not a coconut.